Cubans from the Miami area in Florida are facing deportations.
As you may have heard, many Cubans with permanent residency may now be facing deportation after having returned to Cuba with their permanent residence card.
Now the laws are changing on immigration, and Cubans will be treated just like everybody else that comes to the United States, and wants asylum and refugee, whatever you want to call that, has have to go through the entire process just like everybody else.
Le entregó las llaves, le dijo que no se preocupara y 2 horas después, al salir, solo escuchaba los gritos de su mujer.
Cuban MAGA voters in Florida are facing a shift in their stance on immigration due to changes in U.S. laws. Historically, Cuban immigrants enjoyed preferential treatment, but as immigration laws evolve, they are now subject to the same deportation processes as other immigrants. This shift raises questions about whether Cuban Americans, particularly those who have supported hardline immigration policies, will change their views and voting behavior, especially as they may now face the same treatment as other immigrant groups they've previously opposed. It's a significant moment for both the Cuban community and U.S. immigration politics.
As you may have heard, many Cubans with permanent residency may now be facing deportation after having returned to Cuba with their permanent residence card. And this is because when you file for asylum and you are granted asylum, and many of these individuals obtain their permanent residency after seeking asylum successfully, they are essentially saying that they're scared to return to their home country. And so when they did return to Cuba, now they are being flagged for committing fraud. And if in fact you travel back to your home country, whether you're from Cuba or not, if you have asylum granted and you are now a permanent resident, you should be very, very wary of traveling back to your home country and not being placed in secondary inspection when you re-enter the United States. It is obvious that you're going to be flagged, and I've been saying this for many years. You shouldn't even travel back if you are a U.S. citizen and you became a U.S. citizen by way of permanent residency, by way of an asylum granted. At any point, you are subject to a review of that. And if it is determined that you became a U.S. citizen through fraud or a permanent resident through fraud, they can try and place you in removal proceedings to take away your citizenship and or your permanent residency. So let this be a warning for anybody considering returning to your home country after affirmatively and successfully getting asylum in the United States, because this will likely flag immigration and give them a reason to place you in removal proceedings in an attempt to strip you of your status.
So I was reading this article where the Cuban community was outraged because a Cuban citizen was being deported back to Cuba. And I just couldn't help it but to just wonder, now the laws are changing on immigration, and Cubans will be treated just like everybody else that comes to the United States, and wants asylum and refugee, whatever you want to call that, has have to go through the entire process just like everybody else. Are those Cubans from Florida, whatever you want to call it, gonna change their mind and their views on immigration now that they will be treated no different, even though those Cuban Americans feel like they're the shit and they feel like no other immigrants should come to the United States illegally, but their grandparents did. My question is, are they gonna change the way they vote in Florida? Because yeah, I'm sure they have family in Cuba, just like we all do back in our homes, Are they going to change their views on immigration, on the immigration laws, and change the way they vote, or are they just gonna continue to vote for this dumbass Marco Rubio and the other guy, Dos Santos, whatever the fuck his name is? Are they gonna change the way they vote, or they're just gonna be like, whatever, we here, we got papers, we citizens, we don't give a fuck about them Cubans from Cuba. Anyways, I was just wondering. But yeah, I'm just glad that in some way everybody, if I have to follow the process or I gotta get deported because I'm Mexican, shit. Everybody else needs to be treated the same. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, we're all looking for a better life. And I know it's wrong to get deported because most of the people, I'm not going to say it all, but 90% of the people that come to this country illegally or legally are looking for the same thing, looking for a better life. But, it just really, really irritates me that, all these Cubans from Florida, they're like, oh, American citizen, my fit is dry. Deport everybody else. Now close the borders.
Fair. So, explain it to me. Let's get into it. Ayúdenme a entender por qué los cubanos americanos votan por Trump. En Miami, porque conozco miles de cubanos en otros estados que no son republicanos y no son trumpistas. Y nacieron en Cuba. Y explíquenmelo sin decir que los demócratas son comunistas. Pero aparte de eso, sigo sin entender qué tiene que ver el hecho de que una persona no sea de X país. No va a entender por qué alguien vota para un presidente en los Estados Unidos. Ustedes vinieron a este país. Las políticas por las que estás votando son de Estados Unidos. Estoy segura que hay muchas cosas que podemos aprender de ustedes. Gracias a Dios yo estoy aquí por mis padres y nunca tuve que pasar por lo que han pasado ustedes en Cuba. Pero supongo que en algún momento entiendan que ustedes también tienen cosas que aprender de nosotros. Por lo menos yo, cuando he ido a Cuba, las X veces que he ido a Cuba, yo lo primero que he hecho es tratar de entender las normas, tratar de entender la política, no ir y imponer lo que pienso que sería mejor para el país. Primero que siempre he hecho es intentar de aprender cómo mis acciones afectarían a las personas en Cuba. ¿Cómo puedo asegurar que estoy haciendo algo productivo y no destruyendo? Nosotros jamás vamos a entender lo que ustedes pasaron en Cuba. Pero ustedes necesitan entender lo que nosotros, o sea, los hijos de ustedes, los nietos de ustedes, están pasando aquí. Y necesitan entender cómo ustedes y las decisiones de ustedes nos afecta a nosotros. Espero que algún día realmente se pueda tener esta conversación, porque hay muchas cosas que ustedes todavía tienen que entender que no acaban de entender. Y ya que me pongo rojo cada vez que hablo de esto.
Dear Cubans, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked of the Venezuelans. But here's the thing. See, you thought your racism was going to save you from those consequences, and they didn't. Well, the only thing I can say is, have a nice trip, bye!
I will vote